So now that Rabbeinu Avraham made a distinction on that within that high level of bitachon, that even when a person reaches that high level of bitachon, there is still room to say that a person should be afraid that something that he might not like will happen, unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself tells him, Baruch HaKodesh, B'nevuah, B'hargash, or whatever it is, that it's going to happen the way he wants it to happen. Says the Rabbeinu Avraham, what if HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not tell you? HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not tell you B'nevias, Baruch HaKodesh, or B'hargash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not let you know that things are going to go the way you want them to go. Then there is still room for a certain level. Arei hu yorei lenafshoy. There is still room for a certain level of yira. As Yaakov was afraid of Esau. So we see, until the Malach came to tell Yaakov, don't be afraid of Esau, until then there was a certain level of yira. But in other words, until HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets the Novi know that he's going to do things the way he wants it to happen, till then a Novi can have the full trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that everything will be toiv, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is toiv made to lakoil, and everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there's still room for yira. Up until the point that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets him know that things are going to happen the way he wants them to happen. And here's an interesting thing that Rabbeinu Avraham says, which is why he's referring to this not just for Nevi'im, but rather for every Yid who reaches a high level in Bitachon. And he says that when a person reaches that high level of Bitachon, like those Nevi'im b'chasidim Rishonim, and he's not a Navi, there is still that idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give a person a certain feeling, a certain hargash, is literally the words that he uses, that calm him down, that you know what, things are going to be right, things are going to happen the way you want them. So of course this Baal HaBitachon already has menuchas hanefesh, he already has, like the Rabbeinu B'chaim Chovos HaVavos told us, he already has simcha, because he has full bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he knows everything comes from him. But Rabbeinu Avraham made the distinction that a person at that level could still have a certain yira, that things might not go the way he wants them to go, and at that point that yira will go away if and when he feels a certain feeling from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whether it's Ruach HaKodesh and Nevi'as, or just a certain feeling that he feels HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do things the way he wants them to happen, and therefore he doesn't have to be afraid anymore. Now, what's interesting is that the Rambam seems to say a very similar idea as far as the pachad of Yaakov as the pachad of Shmuel, but it's with a certain distinction that we see here the same idea. That of course those Nevi'im and Chasidim, and those Chasidim are Rishonim. I mean, we're talking Yaakov Avinu Bechira Avos here. We can't even open our mouths discussing this. But what the Rambam said, or Rabbeinu Avraham and the Rambam said, we can repeat. That in other words, there is a certain point in the lives of these people that, of course, they did not lose any level of bitachon, but there was room for them to be afraid that something might happen in a way that they wouldn't want it to happen. In other words, Lavan might bother Yaakov in a certain way as he leaves. That's not a lack of bitachon, that's not a chisaron of bitachon, but there's still room for that yira, and for that they had to wait for the Nevi'as, for the Ruach HaKodesh, for the Hargasha that Rabbeinu Avraham mentions, in order for them to continue on with their menuchas hanefesh and simcha. And the Rambam makes this distinction as far as a Navi, as Chazal tell us, a Navi only has nevuah, as the pasuk says in Tanakh, only when a Navi is besimcha, when a Navi is b'menuchas hanefesh. So when there's that certain level of yira, when there's that certain level of fear, Kaviyachal, that's when they don't have the nevuah, so they don't see exactly what will happen. Again, this is a very darkistic distinction, which is not really negea, at least not to me, maybe to one of the listeners here, but I'll call oifen, by those high Nevi'im or Rishonim, the Rabbeinu Avraham and the Rambam seem to make place for a certain level of yira. Now, when we go back to Rabbeinu Bachya said in the Chovos HaVavos, maybe there's not that much room for a yira, and there might be a different explanation in the darkest words of what it means that Yaakov had yira. But I'll call it from what is clear here is that in this highest level of bitachon, there is always trust in a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that everything is a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and that realization, internalization, and there might be a certain room for yira when it's not clear what might happen next, until Baruch HaKodesh B'Nevuah, HaKodesh Baruch Hu lets the Nevi'im and the Chassidim know that things will happen the way they want it to happen. Have a wonderful day.